Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason and I am your watch guy today. Today I am reviewing another Kickstarter watch. Now, this one is a diver, so you're probably thinking NH35, probably looks a little bit like a Rolex. But no, this one's a bit different. It's packed with a really lovely movement and it's got quite a nice little look to it. Now, there are a few things that I would personally change up on this one, but the watch itself is quite solid, and I think that they're offering it as a really good price. This watch is from Millar Watches. This is their Scuba diver. Now, they have already got quartz divers out there. They use Ronda and ETA movements, or ETA movements even. So, they have followed up that range with a automatic diver on Kickstarter, which will be released today. This one, however, is packed with an SW200 movement, which is a little bit special for a watch that you can pick up at £300 on the early bird price. So, let's turn this camera around and let's have a look at this latest release from Millar Watches. So this is the Millar Watches Scuba diver in question, and I was quite glad to pick up the green dial. Now this is being offered in a black, a blue, a green and a red on the Kickstarter campaign. I think this is probably the nicest one that they have. Now you can see that it does have a little look of a Seamaster to it with that handset, but on the overall it is a pretty originally designed dive watch. So this is a tribute to the gent who runs Millar Watches' late uncle, who was an avid diver. What better way to tribute a diver than with a beautiful dive watch like this? It is Swiss powered with the Solita SW200 movement. Now you will find an SW200 in really high-end watches. Well, I say really high-end. The Oris Aquas, before they updated the movement, had it in. A lot of Tag Heuers at the upper ends on the automatic scale have them in, or slightly remanufactured, reworked editions of it with their own little spin. So it is a really premium movement. The early bird price on this is £300. However, it does go up to 500 at retail. Even at 500, I think it's justified with that movement, if I'm completely honest. So let's talk about the dimensions of this. It is 43.6 millimeters in diameter here to here, but it's not very thick at all. For a dive watch, it's actually only 12.1 millimeters thick. And you can see that it has a really thin case profile. We have 20 millimeter lugs, which is preferable for me, and it is 48.5 millimeters lug to lug, so it's a very wearable watch. Obviously that is a bigger diameter than we are usually used to, but it does have that little Seiko trick of shortening the lug to lug. In fact, as I say that, you can see that it does actually have a little look of a turtle to it. Now obviously the turtle has a slightly different casing with the Air 4 at the bottom here, but you can see where I'm going with this cushioned type of casing. There's a nice mixture of legendary divers in this watch. So this case is all 316L stainless steel. It is high polished throughout the casing, on the upper lugs, on the sides, and even on the crown guards here. As you see, they do meet up to that crown very nicely. They do tuck it in very well. That crown is signed and it has the Millar Watches logo on there. As we turn around to the back, you can see that we do have a circular brushed case back on this one. It is a screw down case back, as you'd expect on a dive watch. As you can see, the usual information printed around the case back itself with the Millar Watches logo in the center. Ironically, that is the only part of the casing that has a different finish on it. It has a sandblasted center and a brushed finish to the rest of it with a radial finish. As we move to this bezel, it is a 120 click unidirectional bezel. Doesn't have any play in it. No back and forth play. Slight little bit of bounce there, but honestly, I've seen much higher priced watches with much more bounce in them, much more playback on them. I'm quite happy with that bezel movement. It is a stainless steel bezel, again, high polished finish to it, and we have this sort of gear style look to the outer edge of the bezel, which I quite like. It's very unique. We have a ceramic bezel insert with white accents. Now, strangely enough, the odd minutes are the ones that are represented here. Usually you'd either find that it is the 15, 30 and 45, or it is 10 to 50 on the even. So I kind of like the fact that they've gone a little bit of a different way with it. Back over to this crown, it does sit a little bit smaller than I would like in the sense of these crown guards. It is a coin edge finish to it, however, there's not a lot of grip. Screw that back in. It is a screw down crown. Again, that's what you'd expect on a dive watch, but it's good to see that they've done it all correctly. You know, they've delivered the right specs for a dive watch, because that's not always a given, really. Now, the crystal sits slightly above the bezel, but you'll notice it's quite a small crystal compared to the body size, and that flows into the dial that we'll get onto in a second. This watch is provided by this case with a 300 meter water resistance rating. 300 meters, I believe, is rarely a dive watch, because obviously they're not all ISO certified at 300 meters, but 300 meters gives you the faith in a watch that it will survive a swim, put it that way. Now, as we move into this lovely green dial, it's not really a Hulk type of colour. I'd probably go more towards Yoda on this, a little bit faded, a little bit aged in the green tones. The mixture and finishing on the dial is actually quite nice. We have an indented section in a U-shape fashion there, and that actually has really nice ridges throughout that. It almost gives it a old record type of style. The rest of the dial is flat finishing, but it is a matte finish also, so no reflection, no sunburst effect, anything like that, but I quite like it. The chapter ring sits above the dial with a white printed minute track on it. These indices are applied. We have a 12 at the 12 o'clock position. A nice Arabic on a dial is what I like to see. The rest of the indices are marked by pointed batons. And down at the 6 o'clock, we have a date window that is framed in a stainless steel finish, as are the indices. Up at the 12 o'clock, we have the Millar Watches logo, and down here we have Scuba Automatic 300 meters. This dial is actually quite well thought out. Now, I like the Arabic numeral on there. I also like the indent. However, I do feel like it's sort of small. It's quite a compact dial. The body is quite big for a watch. Actually, it almost looks like we've squashed a watch out and rolled it out a little bit and flattened it. Another thing that gives you that effect is how close the dial looks to sit to the crystal. Again, that's an effect that I actually quite enjoy on my Speedmaster. I've been back and forth with this all week on whether I like it on this watch. I think I do, but I think I'd have to have it in my possession for more than a week to confirm that. It goes back and forth. Sometimes I really like it and sometimes I don't at all. It gives me a little bit of watch bipolar, to be honest. A little bit up, a little bit down. As we move on to the handset, you can see that this is in a Omega Seamaster fashion. We have the baton style hour hand on this one, and the long elongated arrow style finish to the minute hand. On the second hand, we have a nice lollipop tip, and the second hand is actually colour matched to the dial, which again is quite a nice touch. Now we are obviously going to move on to the loom here. I haven't tested the loom yet. I wanted to leave it as a little bit of a surprise because I didn't know if this was going to go, well, I didn't know which way it was going to go. It's quite a well-developed watch. It's priced well. And I'm kind of waiting to see if there's a drawback to that. So let's turn off these lights and see if it's the lume. So here we have the lume shot for the Millar Watches Scuba Diver. I'm quite glad to see that the bezel is loomed. Also all the indices loomed, handset loomed. That's a bonus. However, the lume isn't very good on it. It's quite dull. One thing to remember is that this is a prototype. Therefore, usually you have to take these with a little bit or a pinch of salt, if you will, because the first thing that goes out of the window when you're making a prototype is really the lume. That's something that you finish off in production. So I'd give Millar Watches the benefit of the doubt on this. However, I would need to see better lume in the production models. Obviously that feedback will be given to Liam. So this watch has been provided to me on this actually really lovely leather strap. You know, it's actually one of the most comfortable straps that I've been provided with. It's very subtle, very conformative on wrist, and it has a very nice tone to it. I do believe that these are going to be released on bracelets also. That's what the images on the Kickstarter campaign will suggest to me. It would be nice to see them on a bracelet. Obviously, I can't give you my opinion of that bracelet without seeing one, but if you get it on a leather band, it's actually really nice. Obviously, leather band will not be suitable for a dive watch, so you would have to be swapping it up to something like a rubber band or a second Dream Market bracelet. I did say in the intro that there were a couple of things I would change about this watch. Let me talk to you about those. Now, I really like the shape of the case. I think it's a very comfortable fitting case. They've used the right material. However, I think they've gone with the wrong way with the finishing. I'd like to see a bit more brushing on this. It's a dive watch, yes, but one thing that we use dive watches for a lot is more like a tool watch. So I'd like to see a bit more brushing because high polish is not very sustainable on a watch that you're going to knock around a little bit. Obviously, we're not going to beat this to hell. That's not the intention here. We will be wearing it though, and high polish finishes, I think, should be designed for an accented finish or a dress watch, because this will get ruined rather quickly if you're using the fashion that is intended to be used. So I would like to see a mixture of finishing. It's a bit too shiny for me to be a dive watch. It's very much towards a dress look at the minute with that casing. Next, I would change the crown on this. I'd make it bigger. You see that it does have a space to be bigger there. It needs to have a better grip and it needs to be bigger, just so you can actually get the functioning the way that you'd like to. It sits a little bit smaller than I'd like. Not incredibly small, it's not massive moon, but I would like it to be a little bit easier to grip. The bezel, love it. I think that's absolutely brilliant, to be honest. The action on it's really good. Click on it is a really nice sound. And I like the different way that they've gone with the numerals. Finally, I think the lume needs to be improved. That should really be on the list for a production model, because in the prototypes, that's something that you sacrifice a little bit. So I would expect that on their list anyway. But just for review purposes, I'd like to see better lume. Otherwise, I think if this is your style, it's an absolute bargain at £300 on the early bird price. £300 for an SW200 movement. That's quite good, you know. 300 meter water resistance. I mean, definitely steering you in the right way. Definitely giving you something to think about there. I quite like it. I think it's quite pretty. So guys, that is the Millar Watches Automatic Scuba Diver. Now, I quite like it. It's a very pretty watch. And you know how I am with green dials at the minute. I absolutely love them. They're my flavour of the year. And I think there are plenty of other people that really do enjoy that dial colour at the moment. So I think that could be a seller for them. Personally, The first thing I'm doing if I bought one of these watches, I'm not actually getting one of these, by the way. This isn't a paid promotion or anything like that. There was no deal like that on the table when Liam got in touch. This is just a review and send back model. But if I were to pick one of these up, the first thing I'd do on arrival is brush the casing out. It's a beautiful watch. I just think you leave the bezel alone, you leave it high polish, right? You give a really lovely brushed finish down the side here. You give a brushed finish, a radial brush finish to the casing, and those little chamfered edges just here, you give them the polish down the side. And I think that'd be a winner for me, to be honest. I think Liam should send me one just so I can try that. Put an idea in my head now. Anyway, guys, if you'd like to pick one of these up, then please hit the Kickstarter link in my description. I will also leave the other relative links below there for you to find. A really big thank you goes to Liam from Millar Watches for sending this in to me to review. I really do appreciate it. Another big thank you goes to Russell, the Mad Watch Collector. You obviously know his channel by now. It's absolutely fantastic. He actually suggested me to Millar Watches, so I really appreciate that, mate. You got me some content out of this one and got me a nice little wearer for the week. Nice one. Thank you guys for watching this. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and I will see you in the next one.